Hello, today I will be colouring up Tiddly Inks Heart Tide stamp. As usual, I start with colouring in the face with the lightest colour to make the image a little bit wet. Then I go around the edge of her face to create the shadows with E15. I've decided to do the hands at the same time because the areas are so small. This is then blended outwards with E13. Only slightly because, as I said, the areas are very small and you don't want them to be too prominent with the darkest colour. This is then blended outwards again with E02. The process is repeated with E00, colouring a slightly larger area, only leaving bit for the lightest marker again, which is E000. The hair is going to be coloured in a blackish colour. For this I prefer to use my BV20 series. I start by using my BV29 to colour in where I want the shadowed and low light areas to be. As this can be a bit small and fiddly, I'm going to do one section of hair at a time. I draw over these lines and a bit further out with the marker that is a shade lighter, which is BV25. I then go over these with my BV23, leaving only small areas where I want the highlighted parts of the hair to be. It can be a bit fiddly colouring around the key that is situated in her hair, but as long as you're being careful, it shouldn't really be a problem. Then quickly go over the highlighted areas, and the marker I've used for this is BV20. Then basically repeat the same process with the remaining parts of the hair. You start with the darkest marker, draw in a few strands, and with the Tiddly Inks images it's quite easy because you can follow the lines that have already been drawn in most of the time, and then you can add a few more if you want a bit more texture. And then you basically follow the lines you've already created with the darkest marker. If you're a bit unsure where you want the deepest colour to be, you can always draw in those lines with the light marker first and get the idea of where you want them, and then go over with the darkest marker once you are happy with the result. When you start with the lightest marker, and that is the lightest colour you will be using anyway, it doesn't really matter where you've used that before you start with the darker colours. I'm going to colour up the dress with red this time. First I create lines for where I want the folds to be. If you're a bit unsure of where you want the folds, you can do as what I described with the hair, that you draw in the lines with the lightest marker first and get an idea of where you want the folds to be. I'm mostly following the sections that are drawn in a bit further down in the image. I've used R39 as the darkest marker, which I've then blended out with R37. I'm going to make it so that the light source is sort of coming in a bit from both sides this time, so it's not directly from the left or the right, so that the highlighted part of the folds are outwards towards the end of the image, obviously apart from the middle section, which I'm going to just skip for now as I don't want it as dark as the rest of the folds. Depending on how fast you colour up, it could be an idea to do 1 or 2 folds at a time to make sure that the colour doesn't dry up before you start on the next colour. As you might have noticed, I've taken up both end caps of this pen. This is because it is brand new and I would hate if it started leaking because of the pressure and the amount of ink in the pen. I blend this outwards with R35, leaving only smaller sections for the highlight colour. I then also colour in parts of the fold in the middle. The lightest colour I've used for this dress is my R32. It could look a little bit orange on film depending on your monitor, but it isn't really that bad. I then colour in the top part of the dress using the same colours as before, making sure that the lines are very, very thin and fine so that it's not just a massive block of one colour, but that I have space to get in a bit of contrast. Leaving just a tiny area for the highlight colour. For the bottom part of the dress, I've decided to keep it mostly the same shade of red as the main part of the dress, but I'm making it a little bit darker. I start with R89 for the shadowed areas, and then I go over with my R39 Then I colour up most of the area that's left with the R37, leaving the highlighted area as R35 this time around. I do this on both sides, obviously, and here I've done one side at a time. As you can see, because I've gone just one shade deeper, it gives the contrast between the top part of the dress and the bottom part of the dress. I want the section between those two bits to be mostly white, so for that I use my W series, obviously the lightest markers in that series. So I start with the W3, which is blended outwards with W1, and then W0, which is then sort of blended out into white. As you can see, I'm drawing in a slight shadow as well. And I'm keeping to the folds of the part above to make it mostly uniform with where the folds are for the dress. It would be a bit awkward if they were randomly placed in the various layers. I'm making the belt yellow and the boots are brown. I start with E77 as I don't want the darkest brown to be too much of a contrast towards the red, and I sort of draw out a semi-outline on the boots themselves. I then fill in the majority of what's left with my E74. I then go over the highlighted area with E71. To bring in the yellow from the belt, I'm adding yellow to the boots as well before I draw in the soles of the boot in a darker colour. For the decorative part of the dress that separates the top from the white, I've gone over approximately half of each of those with the darkest marker I used for the hair, which is the BV29. And I then go over the remaining part with BV25. I do this for both the lower part and the top part. Then I go over and create a dot in each of those folds, which then gives the effect of a highlighted area. It's far easier to do it that way than try to avoid a tiny little bit of each one as you colour it along. Then I quickly colour in the key in a yellow colour. That's it, we're done. thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video.